It was a cold winter morning when the world changed for the passengers aboard the early morning express train that was traveling from the city to the outskirts. People were just beginning their daily routines, unaware that they would soon be caught in a nightmare no one could have anticipated. This is the story of one of the most devastating and tragic train crashes in modern history, an incident that shook a nation and left scars that would never fade. The train, a state-of-the-art high-speed passenger service, was supposed to be one of the safest modes of travel. It carried hundreds of commuters, all of whom had gotten on board that day with the usual expectations of a smooth ride. Little did they know that the train would soon be involved in a catastrophic incident, one that would not only claim lives but also change the way we look at transportation safety forever. The morning was foggy, with low visibility that covered the tracks like a thick, almost impenetrable blanket. The train was speeding through a busy route, packed with people rushing to their destinations. But somewhere along the line, a fatal error occurred. The train's signaling system, a crucial mechanism that helps operators know the status of the tracks ahead, malfunctioned. The engineers and crew were unaware of the impending danger. A warning system that could have prevented the crash failed to alert them in time. The route was known for its sharp curves, but the train, traveling at high speed, was not slowing down. It was a section of the track that had been damaged by a recent storm. The warning system should have informed the crew of the structural integrity issues on the tracks, but because of the malfunction, they remained unaware of the threat they were about to face. At that moment, a critical decision was made in the control center, a choice that would forever change the lives of everyone aboard. The decision to continue operating the train without the necessary updates about track conditions was one that, unfortunately, had irreversible consequences. As the train entered the dangerous stretch of track, the driver and crew did not realize how much trouble they were in until it was far too late. The train, traveling at full speed, reached a sharp bend in the track. The engineers and the crew were helpless as the train failed to negotiate the curve. The violent impact of the derailment sent the train flying off the tracks, twisting and bending like a piece of paper, crashing into barriers, trees, and even into nearby structures. The sound of screeching metal and shattering glass echoed across the area as the train was torn apart. The devastation was immediate. The collision was so powerful that parts of the train were scattered across miles of the surrounding area. Hundreds of passengers were trapped inside the wreckage. Those who survived the initial crash were left in a state of shock and panic, unable to move or help others, as the damage was extensive and the wreckage dangerous. In the moments that followed, the emergency response teams were quick to arrive, but the damage was so severe that it took hours to even begin rescuing the trapped passengers. Police, fire crews, and medical teams worked tirelessly, racing against time to save lives. The chaos was overwhelming, and the entire rescue operation became a race to find survivors amidst the twisted wreckage. The first responders who entered the scene were greeted with a haunting scene of destruction: mangled train cars, debris scattered everywhere, and the heartbreaking sounds of people calling for help. For many, the shock was unbearable. Passengers who had boarded the train that morning were now faced with the grim reality of being caught in the worst kind of disaster. Some were trapped in the wreckage, others had suffered serious injuries, and a few, tragically, did not survive the impact. It took hours for the rescue teams to get to those trapped in the deepest parts of the wreck, and the injuries sustained by many were severe, requiring urgent medical attention. The aftermath of the crash was a blur of emergency medical operations, anguished families awaiting news of loved ones, and a community reeling from the impact. The country was in shock, with news outlets broadcasting footage of the wreckage, showing the extent of the destruction. As the hours passed, the number of confirmed fatalities continued to rise, and the entire nation was shaken by the scale of the tragedy. The investigation into the cause of the crash began immediately, and what was uncovered sent shockwaves through the railway industry. The signaling failure, the lack of proper maintenance on the tracks, and the absence of essential safety systems all contributed to the disaster. The investigation revealed a series of oversights and human errors, many of which had been ignored or dismissed in the past. The authorities discovered that safety protocols that could have prevented such a disaster were either outdated or not properly implemented. There were also reports of miscommunication between the train crew and the control center, which had further compounded the situation. The tragedy led to widespread public outrage, with citizens and survivors demanding answers. How could this have happened? How had the railway system failed to prevent such a catastrophic incident? And most importantly, what would be done to ensure that something like this would never happen again? As the survivors of the crash began their long and painful road to recovery, the emotional scars of that day remained. The families who lost loved ones mourned their loss, struggling to cope with the magnitude of what had happened. Many survivors would carry the trauma of the event for the rest of their lives, haunted by the images of that day. The survivors' stories of bravery and resilience, however, would inspire the world. Some passengers had managed to help others out of the wreckage, putting their own lives in danger to save their fellow passengers. These acts of heroism, despite the tragedy, became a symbol of hope. The crash not only changed the lives of those directly involved, but it also left a profound impact on the world of transportation. The railway system underwent major reforms in the wake of the incident, with governments and transportation authorities enacting stricter safety regulations and investing in more advanced safety technology. The incident prompted widespread changes in infrastructure, equipment, and communication protocols to ensure that such a disaster would never happen again. Years after the crash, the site of the wreckage became a somber memorial, a place where people gathered to remember those who had lost their lives and to honor the heroes who had stepped in to help. The names of the victims were etched into a memorial stone, and every year, people gathered to pay their respects. But even as time passed, the memory of that tragic day remained etched in the hearts of all who had been affected. The incident served as a painful reminder of how fragile life is and how quickly everything can change. It was a lesson in the importance of safety, vigilance, and the need for constant improvement in the face of evolving challenges. As we look back on this real-life tragedy, we are reminded that every life is precious, and that the smallest of oversights can lead to unimaginable consequences. This story serves as a call to action for all of us, to never take safety for granted, to always remain vigilant, and to honor the memory of those who perished that day by ensuring their sacrifice leads to meaningful change. This is not just a story of a train crash, but a story of resilience, survival, and the human spirit's ability to endure even the darkest of times. If you found this story insightful, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content like this, and share. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.